So good morning, everybody. It's great to see so many of you here. It's about 12:01, and I know that folks are continuing to hop online, so we'll let them do that. But I want to try to respect your time this morning. It's so good to see some old friends on this call, some old law partners. Really fantastic to see so many of you here today. I want to invite you to turn on your camera, although of course it's not required. Love to see your faces as we're going through this today and for others to sort of be able to say hello to you. But just want to thank you all on behalf of Legal Aid of North Carolina for joining us for the call today to talk about something that we have been working on for about a year that we are really excited to share with you. So I am going to do a share screen and then we're going to get started. So I am Ashley Campbell at Legal Aid of North Carolina. I am our executive director, and I've been in this role for approximately 1 year. 2 weeks ago was my 1-year anniversary. But before that, I was a law professor at Campbell Law School and was also in private practice at Ragsdale Liggett in Raleigh, where my primary practice was around title repair and title work. And so this project that we're kicking off today is one that is near and dear and close to my heart, and one that I've worked with as a lawyer with some of you folks who have joined us on the call today. So welcome. It's wonderful to see you. So we are here for the Heir Property Pro Bono Project kickoff meeting. And what we're going to do today is I'm going to introduce you to the folks from Legal Aid of North Carolina who are involved in this project. And then we're going to walk you through exactly how the project is meant to work and how, if you decide to volunteer with us, and I hope that you will, how cases will come to you and sort of what that obligation would look like. And then we'll want to open up the floor and answer your questions. I can see some of you on my screen, but I can't see everyone. So I just want you to know that as I move through this presentation, I want this to feel relatively informal and more like a conversation than a presentation. Feel free to come off mute or raise your hand, either physically or using your Zoom buttons. And if I see you, I'll call on you, okay? But if I don't see you and you have a question, just come right off mute and say hello. So the first thing I want to mention to you is the project that we are about to share with you is sponsored by Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo last year gave us a 2-year grant to do heir property work in North Carolina. And that is because Wells Fargo agrees with us that, that doing work to preserve property for heirs is a way to preserve one of the most valuable assets that a low-income family has. And so we are working with them on this project and are really happy to be a partner with them. So in addition to me on the call, you're going to see other colleagues here at Legal Aid of North Carolina, and I'd like to take a moment to introduce you to them right now. So first we have Allison Constance. She is our pro bono director. She is a very experienced pro bono leader. She came to us from UNC Law School. So some of you may know Allison from working at UNC, but we're really glad to have her here. Welcome, Allison. And I know that those of you who sign up will be working on this program with Allison.
Hey, everyone. Really looking forward to working with all of you. And
Allison, I can't hear you. Can everybody else hear Allison? Oh, okay. Maybe my volume's not up. Go ahead, Allison.
Sure, no problem. I'm really looking forward to working with all of you. We have seen at Legal Aid, and I'm sure you all realize that heir property issues really affect folks' ability to really have sustainable wealth that they can pass down. And we're excited to have so many of you here, and hopefully folks watching the recording too. So thank you for being here.
So I can tell I have an audio issue, folks, where I can't hear you. So I'm going to take a minute and I'm going to work on my audio. If you guys will give me just 1 second and see if I can get that working.
And while Ashley is working on that, I would suggest perhaps Nicole Mueller introduce herself. Nicole is a supervising attorney on the pro bono team, and also works with
So Sean just offered in the chat to come over and help me. So I'm gonna, Sean, I think I need your help. So I'm going to keep talking because you guys can apparently hear me. And I'm just going to move through the slides until we get it repaired on my end. I'm also really excited to introduce you to Nicole Mueller. She is a supervising attorney on the Pro Bono project. Everything that I'm going to talk to you about today and that that looks great and professional has really all been done by Nicole and Sean with the assistance of Sean. She's been working on this project for several months. So great to see you, Nicole. And I know everybody's excited to get to meet you.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be working on this project. As Ashley said, I'm a supervising attorney with pro bono programs, and I also supervise on disaster relief. So we've been working on these issues, especially disaster relief context, for a long time now. And I'm excited to keep doing that work and doing outreach with our clients so that we can, really make an effort and an impact in North Carolina. So thank you guys for joining us today. And I think this is going to be a really successful project.
I think now it might also be a good time for our folks from the North Carolina Bar Foundation to introduce themselves, specifically Alex Rogers, who is navigating the Bar Foundation side of the project. Alex, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks so much, Allison. And I'm so happy to be here and so happy to be part of this collaborative effort with Legal Aid of North Carolina and some of our other partners, Pisgah Legal Services and Land Loss Prevention Project. So the NC Bar Foundation program staff have been working closely with the NCBA Real Property section project coordinators for this project to begin creating a database of interested volunteers who want to do pro bono work in this space. And so we will be coordinating with our legal services organizations when those referrals are received. We have developed a website for the project where volunteers can sign up. So on that website, we also plan to keep up-to-date training schedules, recordings of trainings, and other resources that we compile. I'll drop the link to that in the chat so everyone has access. And then I also just wanted to briefly mention that volunteers with this project would be covered also under the NCBA and NCBF malpractice insurance. So that's always important to note when doing pro bono service. But so thrilled that you all have invited us to participate here today, and so thrilled to be collaborating with you all on this project.
Thank you, Alex. And so those are all of the folks who you will be interacting with if you do decide to work on this project with us. So now I'd like to go through the project, explain how it will work, and then answer your questions. So first of all, what is Heir property? Now, many of you, I think on the call, are real estate specialists, real estate lawyers. This is not going to be a new concept to you, but when we're talking about Heir property, we're talking about property that is passed down to an heir in North Carolina where someone has died without a will. And as those of you who are in this area know, oftentimes you have multiple individuals who are heirs when a person has passed away and who may have inherited property as an heir. They, of course, will each have some share of property ownership. The big issue that we see here at Legal Aid of North Carolina that has significantly impacted our state, and particularly the low-income people that we serve, is that much of this occurs in Black rural communities in Eastern North Carolina and in some of the mountain communities. That's where most of these issues seem to be concentrated, that we see with folks coming to us and saying, I've inherited this asset and I don't, I own it with lots of folks and I don't know what to do about it. Without clear title to property, of course, it is very difficult for the heir to obtain a loan on the property, to use it as collateral, to sell it, or to enroll in a recovery assistance program following a natural disaster. So let me give you an example of when this type of issue may arise. So Hurricane Matthew hits the coast of Eastern North Carolina in 2016, and FEMA has a loan program for people who are impacted by that storm. And perhaps it allows folks to come get a loan from FEMA at, a no interest rate or with some other really desirable terms for the homeowner to get that loan assistance so that the homeowner can repair the property. When the person goes to FEMA for the assistance, they have to show FEMA that they have an ownership interest or are the owners of the property. Now, FEMA and some of the other agencies have recently changed some of their rules to try to help heirs. But the issue that really arises is if you can't show that you're an owner of the property or that all the owners are there, sometimes folks cannot get that loan assistance. So when Legal Aid of North Carolina began representing a lot of victims of natural disasters in the last 15 years, this issue has come up again and again, where folks who own property, perhaps with 8 brothers and sisters and cousins, can't get access to those loans, or can't sell their property or obtain a loan to fix up the property. And then the house or the property becomes uninhabitable because it can't be fixed up and maintained. And oftentimes folks just leave the property because they can't live there. And it leads to a negatively impacted community as well as a negatively impacted family. Of course, property values around it decrease, et cetera. So there are many problems and issues that can flow from an inability of an heir to resolve issues related to property that the heir has inherited. This project, the goal of the project is to provide heir property owners with clear title to their property. It's going to prioritize the folks in those impacted communities that we talked about earlier, folks in Eastern North Carolina or in the mountains that are prone to natural disasters and other marginalized communities. The folks who are going to be involved in this project are going to be Lance, Legal Aid of North Carolina, lawyers, social workers, and paralegals, and pro bono attorneys like you. The NCBA and the NCBF, as Alex already mentioned to you, have helped us recruit volunteers from this project. And I do want to take a minute to say, this project originated with the real property section. The real property section has been looking for partners to work with real estate lawyers and to help impacted folks for many years. So some of you that are on this call have been trying to get a project like this going for many years and reached out to our partners, Land Loss Prevention Project, Pisgah Legal Services, and Legal Aid of North Carolina, trying to get this kicked off. And I know Nancy Ferguson, who I saw on the call, great to see you, Nancy, has been really critical in getting this project off the ground as well. So we're just thrilled to be collaborating with such a wonderful group. The clients who will be eligible for this program are all very low income. They're all 200% or below the federal poverty level. For those of you who don't know what those numbers are right off the top of your head, it means income of an individual below about $30,000. They're going to have inherited a fractional interest in the property. And this is an important one, our priorities are that the heir is living in the home. Okay, so the home is the primary residence of the heir, with the goal of preserving the home, securing loss mitigation, and preserving affordable housing in these impacted communities. The types of cases that may arise from this are probate cases, folks calling us for assistance with probate, folks asking for assistance with wills and advance directives, easements, mortgage, foreclosure, or deeds. And here's how it will work. So and you can sort of follow from the left side of the screen. Our Lance helpline is going to do an intake with the client. So the clients are going to call us. We're going to do the financial and the case acceptance screening, and we will interview the client, obtain all the documents. We're going to handle the setting up of the entire file. The file is going to be assigned to a legal aid lawyer, probably in one of our local offices near you. So we have 23 offices throughout North Carolina. We're located in 23 counties. So a Lance lawyer is going to be assigned the case, and it's also going to go to the Lance Pro Bono team. And remember, I introduced you to Allison. So it's going to Allison and her team and Nicole. And they are going to work with the Lance lawyer and say, okay, here is the real estate question that we have. So the real estate question might be, we need to figure out who, how much of an interest our client received and who are the other heirs. Okay. So they're going to identify, that's sort of the real estate issue we need to figure out. And then they're going to reach out to one of you and they're going to say, hey, I see Troy. So I'll use Troy as an example. Hey, Troy. They might reach out to Troy and say, hey, Troy, are you willing to take this case to help Sue Smith? We need to identify Sue's heirs and how much of an interest Sue actually inherited. Okay. So if Troy is our volunteer lawyer under this scenario, he would say, yes, I would love to help. So we send it over to Troy and then he does the real estate legal work. Now, our expectation is that Troy could reach back out to the legal aid lawyer assigned to the case or the pro bono attorney that's assigned to the case to ask any questions, get any additional information from the client that's needed. Of course, Troy also could call the client if he wanted to have a direct communication with the client, but he could also, again, go through the lawyers. And then Troy's going to do his work on his end. He could use volunteers in his, paralegals in his office. He could do this work himself, however Troy decides to do it. And then Troy is going to put together, some type of memo and, the materials that he's done, the title work he's done, and he's going to send it back to the legal aid lawyer and the pro bono program. And he's going to say, here's what we did. Here's what we found for Sue. If he sees any issues that we need to be aware of, he's going to let us know that. That is essentially the end of what Troy needs to do, because we're going to take that information and we are going to serve the client. We're going to, if we need to file a lawsuit, we're going to do that. If we need to negotiate with heirs, we're going to do that. Okay. So Troy's commitment is really limited to help us do that real estate work that he is so good at and so specialized in. Now, it is possible that through the litigation or through some type of mediation, we decide that we need a deed. So we might go back to Troy later and say, we were able to get Sue's issue resolved. We need to get a deed drafted, a quitclaim deed. Would you be willing to help us do that as well, Troy? Okay, so that is really the limits of what we're asking the volunteer lawyers to do in this project. I've gotten off script in terms of my my little chart, but of course we're going to have to do conflicts checks, and we're going to get the memo from you. You're going to do or memo from us. You're going to do the title work. You're going to do a memo, and then you're going to do a case closing form, and that's it. And we would encourage you to record your volunteer time so that you can submit it to the Pro Bono Resource Center and be recognized for 50 hours of volunteer service a year if you are able to get there. But that's pretty much what it looks like. And we've done it this way because we want to limit what you're being asked to do. And for when you accept the case, you know about how much work it's going to require, and you're not going to feel like I'm committing to something that's going to take, 2 months, 2 years, etc. So if you have additional questions, the slide deck will go out to all of you after the call, but you can learn more about it by going to ncbarfoundation.org/heir-property and then sign up online or use the QR code. So if you're like, oh, I really want to do it right now, feel free to grab your phone, scan that QR code on your phone, and you can sign up right now. So I'm going to do a stop share and see what sort of questions and thoughts that those of you who've listened to the presentation have.
Hi, Ashley, it's Laura Davenport. I'm going to assume that I'm not the only one thinking this question, so I'm going to go ahead and ask it. So let's say, hypothetically, a person wanted to help volunteer with this, but doesn't have a lot of experience actually doing like title searches and stuff. Is there an opportunity to get some substantive assistance to make sure that whatever that hypothetical volunteer was doing it right?
Yes. So I will say the This particular program is structured to be an opportunity for people who have a background in real estate. You know, I don't think that someone who's not done any real estate is going to be comfortable with this particular project. With that said, if we have folks who have a real estate background, but need more information about your property or title repair work, yes, we would like to put together some trainings using some real case examples that folks can use to learn about the types of issues that may arise and how they may be resolved. And I know that Nancy Ferguson has offered to do some trainings too. We've not followed up about that, so we don't have anything firm scheduled right now, but we did want to hear back from those of you who were on the call today and get a sense of what types of training you might want us to offer. So Laura, I'll ask you, is there anything specific that you have in mind so we can make note of it?
Well, I mean, I work at a bank and they're compliance officer, so I've seen lots of title and estate and probate. And I mean, I have a basic understanding of the outcome of it, but I'm thinking, okay, well, are all the counties online for title searches right now? Or, I'm not sure how you'd find heirs. Just some of the things, like, as I'm thinking through this, thinking this is a really great project, thinking, can I be qualified to help? But so just, I could probably wander off on my own and find somebody to just, if the opportunity seems like it's a fit for me, to get somebody to help me with the nuts and bolts of it. But I think it's a fair point that if you don't have some grasp on the concepts, it's going to be a pretty hard way to enter it. Mm-hmm. But I was just curious how it was how you were planning to do that. Thank you.
Thanks. And that's really great feedback. And a couple of pieces of information I'll share, which is that we are hiring someone on our pro bono team that's going to do case administration who has a real estate background. Now, she's a paralegal, not a lawyer, but she's going to be able to sort of speak the language and can also provide some support to volunteers. And then the other thing I would say is, one thing we can do as we work through the issues is if a volunteer, feels really comfortable with a certain scope of the project, but not another scope, we can bring in a mentor volunteer to also help. We can try to mentor you through that process, or if we need more expertise, we can go to one of our other lawyers on this phone call who have a lot of experience and try to pair that lawyer with a volunteer. So thanks for that question, Laura. So I think I saw Paul's question or hand next, then Kate's, then Troy. So Paul Yale.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me, Ash? Okay, I'm sorry. I'll try to be real quick. Yeah, Ash, you and I met in Gaston County here back before Christmas. I moved to North Carolina from Texas about not quite a year ago. Did wave into the North Carolina bar. I'm a mineral lands lawyer. What you're describing, of course, is a process that's very, very similar to clearing title on minerals. We in Gaston County, there's a huge lithium mine. I guess my question goes to the scope of the project. Are you limiting it to Eastern North Carolina disaster recovery assistance? Or just as a real quick example, when I was in Houston, I did a case a year ago for Houston Volunteer Lawyers, where there's a homeless person in Houston who owned minerals in Ohio. Well, we were able to get title clear to the minerals in Ohio. He got a big check. So I bet North Carolina, with a population of 15 million people or so, probably has a lot of individuals like that. But is mineral title clearing outside the scope of this project, or what would be your comment on that?
I think that's a great question. We've not thought about mineral rights cases. I wouldn't say it's outside the scope yet. I mean, I think we would need to sort of hear the intake and see what the issue is. I can't think of how it would arise in an heir case, but it could. I mean, you can inherit someone's mineral rights.
Well, it actually arises all the time, because oil companies love to have situations where they identify a likely heir, but the heir has not probated his or her estate. And so what do? They suspend the royalty, and then they get the use of the money interest free until it finally escheats to the state, years ago. But it's all mineral. I mean, there's all sorts of rare earth minerals all over the country, not just in Texas, but like I used the lithium example. There's a lithium example in Gaston County.
Well, and so I would just say, the way the project is currently structured is that we're preserving home ownership. However, I think that, Paul, if you're interested in signing up and you have an expertise and background in minerals, as we develop this program and as we see what the flow of cases looks like, it's possible we're going to start accepting a broader group of cases, especially as all of you become more experienced and we all work together more and we can see what our capacity is. So I would love for you to still sign up and be involved. I'm not sure right now what we'll do about a mineral rights case, but I'm actually thrilled to know that we have somebody on the call that could handle it if we needed you to. So that's fantastic. So I'm going to go to Kate, then Troy, and then I'll get back to a few questions that are in the chat.
Hi, thanks, Ashley. I direct the Economic Justice Clinic at UNC Law, and I joined wondering if this was an opportunity for my students to get involved. And I'm hearing it, I think that the students would maybe be too slow to move this forward. But I guess my question is whether there would be an opportunity to get involved as a pro bono lawyer at the next stage, which is after this process goes through and you're at the stage of litigation or negotiation or that kind of thing, because I think that that would be an opportunity that I would love to get involved in. And I just wasn't sure if that's something you anticipate now or in the future.
I think that would be fantastic. So I came from a clinical background, Kate. I was a clinical professor for 6 years before I came into this current job. And I did title repair cases and litigation with my students. So I know they can do it. It's a great opportunity for law students because it combines civil procedure, trust and wills, estates, probate. I mean, it's got all of it. So I think we would love to do that. And I know Allison too has a passion for working with law students as well. So I'd love for us to talk about that.
All right, I can reach out to Allison, certainly, but should I go ahead and sign up even though it doesn't make sense for?
I think so.
Okay, all right,
let's go ahead and get your information in the queue. And one thing I'll say to everybody is if you take a case and you want to litigate it through the end, you're not going to find any pushback from us, right? We have plenty of cases coming through legal aid. The only reason we didn't structure it for you guys to handle the litigation is because we know how long it takes. And we're really trying to structure a program where folks can just sort of come in with a finite piece of the puzzle. So definitely open to folks who would prefer to keep a case and expand the representation. Troy.
Sorry about that. The question I had is you mentioned a lot of this stuff and which is very consistent with what we've seen trying to ensure these titles is on the ends of the state. For those of us who are in the middle, it's going to be very difficult for us to have easy access to pull estate files, say in Columbus County or in Graham County or wherever. Is there some assistance provided with that from either your staff offices or other volunteer attorneys? I mean, it's not practical that I'm going to drive to Robbinsville to pull one estate file that may or may not have any useful information.
I think that is really good feedback for this group. And I know the pro bono team is making notes because what we may end up, we could do a couple of different things, right? We could ask our own staff, like you as a volunteer could send something back to us and say, I need something from Robinson County. Well, we have lawyers there, so we might send our own staff over there, but we might ultimately decide that we want to have sort of a listserv of all of you folks, like a little mini real property listserv where you can ask each other for help. So as we move through the process, we can think about that. But we have staff on the ground that could support you, I think, for what you need. Okay. And the other thing I want to mention is that I would anticipate, you brought up title insurance. I would anticipate that we should all consider that we would explore if we've got a title, like a traditional title defect that's not just air property or something like that, whether there is insurance that could cover a particular claim before we all spend all of our time and resources trying to get it resolved. Just a little note about that. Thanks, Troy. So Scott Saylor said, is there a fundamental difference for disaster relief if there's a life estate holder? I'm not sure whether FEMA and others how they handle those types of cases, Scott. I'm assuming that's what you're asking, is whether those folks are able to access benefits. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Interested in whether if there is a life estate holder, does that really solve it? Or is it still the same issue if there's a life estate holder? I know of 3 or 4 situations like that.
Yes, right. And I don't know if Leslie Albritton's on the call, or Nicole, if you know what sort of, if FEMA will provide benefits to a life estate holder.
Hey, it depends on, Leslie is here. Hi, everybody. The answer is, of course, it depends. It depends on the program. Most programs that provide short and long-term benefits for disaster survivors will provide those benefits to a holder of a life estate. FEMA certainly requires that you are an owner at the time of the natural disaster and that you are using the residence as your primary residence. So that would include someone with a life estate interest, for instance. And sometimes in the disaster relief project, we do solve those issues by helping to formalize a life estate interest.
Thank you, Scott. Great question. And thank you, Leslie. So Leslie Albritton, everyone, led the disaster relief program for the last several years to great success. She recently moved into the new role of Chief of Staff at Legal Aid of North Carolina. And so we get to work with her very close here in my office, but she's a real expert and will continue to support this project as needed. I saw that Michael Crook asked a question of, is the goal to get the occupant 100% interest in the property or just to identify all the heirs? And I would say it just depends, Michael. So it could be that, no one has seen Uncle Johnny since 1999 and needs your help, like looking through Westlaw or doing whatever you could do to help find Uncle Johnny and see if he's out there, see if he'll, help to sell, sign a deed to sell a house, for example. So it just depends on the circumstances. But I think most of the time, our goal would be to get the occupant a 100% interest in the property. I do want to say we are working internally to think about, we aren't trying, if it could be that we've got multiple low-income people all around, multiple low-income heirs. So we aren't necessarily trying to advocate for low-income heirs against each other. We're really trying to help come to a collaborative solution so that everyone can move forward. And this is actually a great opportunity for me to mention something that I saw at a national conference in Texas a couple weeks ago that I would love for you guys to think about, especially those of you who may work for banks. So Bank United has partnered with a legal services program to provide loans to folks that are in these types of situations, to borrowers that it would not normally provide loans to. And I'm not going to get into the whole subject today. It would take about an hour to go through the program. But essentially, the bank is trying to help heirs resolve issues like this. And so, for example, they may loan an heir money to pay off the other heirs, so that, and then of course use the home as collateral to help resolve the heir property issue. We would love to start or to help nurture a program like that in North Carolina, not in the next 6 months, but in the next 12 to 24 months. I think it would be amazing if we as real estate lawyers, advocates, bankers, lenders, title insurers could think about bringing some type of program like that to North Carolina that could help resolve these types of disputes for low-income people. I'm going to look at Derek Dittner's. Hey, Derek. So Derek says he works in a commercial real estate firm in Charlotte. They get their title work via an agreement, and then they have a paralegal, process the notes, etc. There is not currently a title insurance company partnering with the program, but we are open to all fantastic ideas that could come from this group about how to make this program stronger or how to help the heirs more. But we are not working currently with any title search contractors to do the title work. We're really asking the real estate lawyers to do it. But if we could be creative together and build out another piece of the project, I think we're open to that. So I now want to go to Kate England, who's had her hand up patiently. Or Kate Ellengold.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ashley. You already called on me.
Okay, you already did. Okay, yeah, I'm
no
sorry.
Worries. I just got confused. Thank you.
Got it. Okay. And then we've got someone with just a telephone number with a 336 area code. Do you have a question?
Hey, that's me. This is Randy Herman. I'm a real estate lawyer. I think this is a great program. I want to follow up on what Troy was asking, because I've done several of these heir property searches, and my experience is usually there's multiple generations of intestate succession. There's family members who have moved to other states. So in other words, when I've done them, it has often resulted in some pretty significant title search expenses in terms of getting copies of estates, getting vital records from other states, trying, maybe even bringing in like PIs to try and locate people in other states. Have you guys thought about how you would handle the expenses of the title search other than just the attorney's time?
Great question. Leslie, do you recall if our grant allows us to reimburse anyone for any expenses?
We do have a budget related to title search and other expenses, court-related expenses that might arise. So yes.
Great. And that's such a great question because, the things you guys bring up and share with us, we can write into future grants as we try to get additional funding for these types of projects to cover things like that. So great question. Thank you. John.
Hey.
Hey.
Thank you. This is all very helpful. Just two questions along. I thought Nancy Ferguson's chat comment was great. Along those lines, do we have, is there an intake that, that's intended to gather information on marital status, given that spouses are intestate heirs at law, and number two, equitable adoption? This is something that I've seen out there, and just anecdotally, I've seen a number of senior generation family members, adopt grandchildren, for example, without undertaking the formal process. And I was just wondering about the intake process and how we can easily identify the family members.
Great question. So I know we are going to be using we do have a pretty complex intake process here at Legal Aid, and of course we would ask for a spouse, but we haven't put together, Nicole, we haven't put together a specific intake process for this, have we?
No,
or have
not
we?
quite. No, not quite. I do think that the legal aid attorney that's paired one of our processes that we usually have, especially if we know that it's an heir property issue, and I guess I'm speaking generally about disaster relief because typically we're the one, they handle most of these cases. Sort of one of their go-tos is to start preparing a family tree and things like that. So I think that is kind of more of our process once it gets to an attorney than from an intake standpoint. But that's certainly something that we can do on our side before we pass that off to an attorney, a private volunteer attorney to handle the rest.
And I'll go ahead and say to this illustrious group, if any of you have forms like that you use to do questions for your clients around the types of issues and want to send those to me or Nicole or Allison or Sean, we can, potentially adapt those for this program. And I have never heard of an equitable adoption. And I know there are a lot of thorny issues out there. A question I have for Troy, Troy, the last time I was doing, because you're an underwriter, the last time I was doing a title search and I was thinking about all these folks who go on these websites, and find out that they, have a brother or a father or somebody they didn't know about. How do you guys deal with, from an underwriting and title insurance perspective, the unknowability potentially of all heirs?
So, and I would love to get Nancy's comment on this also from there, but in your litigation, almost certainly, I can't imagine it. If you are bringing litigation, you're going to require a guardian ad litem to be appointed for unknown heirs. I mean, another issue is equitable adoption, but just the illegitimacy statute, and North Carolina's rule is that if you're not legitimated within certain time periods, and that issue is lost. And so proving the right heirs. So I mean, Nancy, please join in. But generally speaking, when we're doing this, the first thing I'm looking for when there is some type of quiet title action or a petition to partition, whichever method, is that there's a GAL appointed for the unknown heirs. And obviously, some of the drama that happened in the western part of the state, that's even a little bit scarier. One issue you're going to have is that a lot of times these properties, at least in my experience, have been $30,000 or $40,000 houses, and from our perspective, taking a $75 title premium, our willingness to take on much risk at all, it's a problem.
So it's the title insurance company's advice that whenever you do like a quiet title, that you name a guardian ad litem for all unknown heirs?
To prove I'm an attorney, well, it depends. But if there's ever any type of question like this, I don't know how you don't do that.
Okay.
And then you need to do due diligence to make sure that these heirs were actually locatable. I mean, it's not again what some of the drama that happened out west. You can't do a guardian ad litem to get around people that are there. I mean, you do need to adequately serve those that are easily found. So the worst project we had on, and again, I received a $51 premium for this one, was the denominator of people's interest, I think, was like 1 over 14,280. And so, and we just got close enough. We didn't find everybody, but my underwriter was willing to take a little bit of risk for a pretty reasonable cause. And so again, what you're trying to do is going to make some determination. If you're just trying to clear title, that's one thing. If it's part of a loan that's going to require a title insurance policy, then there's different risk tolerances for owners and loan policies in those situations. But again, I'd love Nancy's input on this if she's still on the call.
Nancy, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, I'm here. Just kept it muted. I mean, there are a lot of different ways, and what Troy just pointed out, the key thing is going to be, what's the purpose of looking for it? Is it to get a loan? Is it because they want to be able to sell the property or improve the property? Is it a more limited purpose, like they can get FEMA benefits or whatever? So that's going to be the biggest issue. And I wish we had a better quiet title type action in this state for a lot of reasons, like fraud. But right now, we just have the various ways that we do it. And we do have the new partition statute, which is helpful. But anytime we try to use those, I think we would be looking for a guardian ad litem if there's any chance anybody's out there. I really do, the thing I put in the chat, I really do think the one big constructive thing that could come out of this for a lot of people, including young attorneys and attorneys in other practice areas, is learning how to find those people. What are the resources that are out there? I don't have any clue about a lot of them, but I think there's a real group of people that can find all kinds of things and share that. So I think that would be a real training opportunity. And again, it's not just real estate. I mean, this is people that do domestic work, family law, this is estate administration. Real estate always entails like all different areas of law in which a lot of us don't have expertise, and in which the law keeps changing, like equitable adoptions. So I think this is a real opportunity for young lawyers to get involved, and us old guys.
Thank you, Nancy. And I'll go ahead and ask the group, if either you or someone would be a good teacher on the topics that Nancy has raised about how do we find folks? What are the creative ways to find folks? Could you drop that in the chat or send that to the pro bono team? So Sean has put an email in the chat, probono@legalaidnc.org. We would love to hear from you on any trainings you would like to receive, if you have a specific trainer for that, or if you have any other ideas or feedback or forms or anything like that you think we could use to make this program better. If you could send those to us at that probono@legalaidnc.org link, we would be thrilled. And one more thing I'll say about those of you title insurers who are on the call. I would respectfully request that I think the way that you could be so amazingly supportive to this project is to be an advisor to some of the lawyers who may be doing this work for us, and questions come up and they could call you and seek out your advice, or our attorneys who are litigating the cases or handling the cases being able to call and ask you about those difficult real estate questions when they come up. I think that could be an enormous resource to this project if you're willing to do that.
No, I would. This is Nancy. But I think we do that a lot. I'm sure Troy does that a lot on cases. The classic call is, I don't have title insurance on this, but can you help me decide what I would do with this?
Yes.
So,
Thank
great
you.
project.
Thank you both. Other questions from the group? And I'll go ahead and say this, does anybody have concerns? Are you sort of thinking, well, I'd like to participate in this project except for blank, or this is a concern that I have. I'd love to hear those and see if there's any way we can address them. Any other questions or thoughts from our legal aid team? So Allison, Nicole, Sean, Leslie, or others? Okay. Does everybody know how to sign up for our project? Sean, can you drop that little sign up? Are you able to drop that little bit.ly into the chat? I tried to copy it, but I couldn't get it to go in there.
Yep.
Okay.
Do it in a second.
Okay. So, we like lots of feedback. So as this program is progressing, we hope that you will tell us how we can do things better. So that we would love to structure, the best air property program in the country that other bar associations want to model their programs on. And we can only do that with your feedback and support. So please don't ever hesitate to tell us if there's anything we can do to improve our case selection process, how cases are getting to you, the information we provide to you. And then positive feedback is always welcome as well. So if something's going really well, you think the process is working well, please share that also. Any other questions, comments, or thoughts before we adjourn?
Hey, I don't know if I'm the only one that's on the phone, but is that sign-up link also going to be emailed out or something?
You mean the sign-up link?
Yes.
Sean, well, it's got like lots of dots and dashes. Since Sean, can you send it out to everybody who's on this call? I think everyone had to register, right, to come into the call?
Yes, if they had to use it. Well, then, yep, I definitely can.
So will that work for you if Sean sends an email to everybody who registered, who's on the line?
Yeah, that would be great. I just can't get into the chat, so.
Okay. And then just a reminder that the North Carolina Bar Foundation website has a link as well. So please encourage your law firm associates, your partners and colleagues to sign up for this project. And we're just going to go ahead and say thank you in advance. We can make really positive change in the lives of North Carolinians and in the communities in our state by engaging in this work together. So really excited to get started with all of you. I just want to say thank you again to this great Legal Aid of North Carolina team, for the North Carolina Bar Foundation, for supporting our work, and for Pisgah Legal Services and Land Laws, who are also participating. So thank you, everybody. Great to see you. If you have any questions, I'll stay on the line. If you have any questions you just want to direct to our team. Okay, we don't see any other questions. Thank you, everybody.